Okay, let's get right into it. We communicate all day, every day. But have you ever really stopped to think about how it actually works? Today, we're going to break down the whole fundamental process. Think of it as the blueprint for how a thought in your head actually makes it into someone else's. You know that feeling, right? You type out a quick message, you hit send, and the reply you get is, well, it's not what you expected at all. Suddenly there's confusion, maybe some frustration, or even a full-on argument. And you're left wondering, what just happened?
Well, the answer is probably lying right here, inside this basic model of communication. Let's just think of this as our map for the next few minutes. We're going to follow the journey of one little message through this entire process to see exactly where things can go right, and more importantly, where they can go so wrong.
So let's start at the very beginning of that journey, the second an idea is born and gets ready for its trip.
Everything, and I mean everything, starts with the source. This is the origin point. It's the person, the entity, with an idea. It's pretty simple, really. No source, no communication.
And a source isn't always just one person. Sure, it could be you texting a friend, but it could also be a whole group, like a committee writing a report, or it could be a massive organization putting out a TV commercial.
Now here's the thing, an idea just sitting in your head is totally invisible. To send it anywhere, you have to package it up first. And that process, that's called encoding. It's this kind of magic step where you turn an abstract thought into something real. Words, pictures, sounds. But you know what? It's also our first potential point of failure. You pick the wrong words, and this whole thing can go sideways before your message even leaves your phone.
So, when you speak, your brain and your tongue are encoding thoughts into sound waves. When you write, your brain and fingers are encoding them into symbols on a screen. And in our little text message example, the simple act of you typing out "meet for coffee," yep, that's encoding.
All right, so the message is packaged up. Let's move on to the next stage and see how this newly encoded idea actually gets from point A to point B. So once that idea is encoded, it officially becomes the message. This is the actual tangible thing that gets sent out into the world. It's the physical product of all that mental work.
A message can be anything, really. It could be the words you speak out loud, the ink on a page, or even an entire television show. In our example, the message isn't just the words "meet for coffee." It's the actual stream of digital ones and zeros that's carrying those words to your friend's phone.
Okay, but how does that digital data even get there? Well, it needs a road to travel on, and that road is called the channel. It's the medium, the pathway that carries the message.
So a channel could be the air carrying your voice in a face-to-face conversation. It could be the paper a newspaper is printed on. Or, in our case, it's the cell network that zips your text all the way across town to your friend's phone.
All right, the message has made it. It's arrived at its destination. But the journey isn't over yet, not by a long shot. Now it has to actually be understood.
And this is where decoding comes in. It's basically the mirror image of encoding. The receiver takes that physical message and translates it back into a thought or an idea. But here's the tricky part. They're decoding it through the filter of their own experiences, their own mood. This is exactly how a harmless joke can suddenly land like a major insult.
So the fact that you're reading these words on the screen right now, you're decoding. Listening to my voice, that's decoding too. When your friend looks at their phone and their brain processes the words "meet for coffee," that right there, that's the moment of decoding.
So who's doing all this decoding? That would be the receiver. This is the destination, the whole target of the entire process. Without a receiver, a message is just, well, it's just noise floating around in the void. A receiver could be one specific person you called, like your friend. Or it could be a huge self-selecting audience, like anyone who decides to watch this. The receiver is the end of the line. Or is it?
So far, this all seems like a pretty straight shot, a one-way street. But real conversation, it's so much more dynamic than that. Let's look at the parts that turn this into a real two-way exchange.
See, if we just look at the model going from source to receiver, we are missing something absolutely critical. Communication isn't a lecture, it's a conversation. This one-way street is really only half the story.
And here it is, the game changer, feedback. This is what flips the whole script and reverses the flow. The receiver becomes a new source. They encode a reply and they send it right back. Feedback is what turns a monologue into an actual dialogue.
Now, feedback can be positive, which, it encourages the conversation to keep going, like your friend texting back, "Yes, let's meet."
Or it can be negative, which changes or just completely stops the communication. And the perfect, most brutal example, getting left on red. That is some powerful negative feedback right there. We've got one last piece of the puzzle to talk about, and frankly, it's the villain of our story: noise. Noise is anything, and I mean absolutely anything, that gets in the way and interferes with the message. It is very often the true culprit behind that text that went so wrong.
And noise comes in a few different flavors. You've got semantic noise. That's when words just mean different things to different people. Then there's mechanical noise, a tech problem, like that infamous autocorrect fail that changes coffee to committee. And finally, environmental noise, which is literally just static and distraction in the background, like trying to have a serious text conversation at a loud concert.
So here's the big takeaway. We now have the full blueprint. From the source's first idea through encoding the message, the channel, the decoding, the receiver, all the way to that crucial feedback loop and all the potential noise that can get in the way. The next time a text goes wrong, you'll know exactly where to look to figure out why. So the only question left is, where are you going to start?